good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to our 2025 Pa'al Vasa Zoom teaching series. Today, we are honored to have Venerable Jinaratana to start a series on using Sutta and Abhidhamma to support your meditation. The teaching will be in English, then in Chinese, and is scheduled for 1 hour, including Q&A. May we invite Bante to start the teaching, please. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So welcome everybody from all parts of the world. I think, how's the sound? Is the sound okay there?
Yes, Bante.
Okay. So today we're going to start with our first of the bilingual series, and the English might outpace the Mandarin a little bit. So I might improvise a little bit more with the English. We have prepared the Mandarin ahead of time. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about a few things, actually, and they have to do with the nature of life and also the nature of death. So the Buddha would often begin his teachings by focusing on the wrong way of practice and only later going on to focus on the right way of practice. Now, this is kind of opposite of what we tend to do in the modern day. It's usually we would explain the correct way and then the incorrect way. But today we're going to follow the traditional way. So we're going to look at one incorrect way of practice and then see how we can turn that into a correct way. 大家好，欢迎参加2025年语文组的第一场讲座。佛陀向上先解释错误的修行方式，然后再阐明正确的方式。因此，让我们先从一个关于死亡的不善思考为例子开始。So, this is a quote from the play Macbeth. So the English speakers will all know this play. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Macbeth, Act 5, Scene 5. 明天，再明天，复明天，日复一日，蹒跚爬行，直到时间落叶的最后一个音符。我们所有的昨日，不过是为照亮愚人通往尘土之死的道路。熄灭吧，熄灭吧，短暂的烛光，人生不过是个行走的影子。一个可怜的演员，在舞台上逞强，焦虑不安地过渡他的演出时间，然后便无声无息。它是一个有傻子诉说的故事，充满喧嚣与骚动，却毫无意义。So it's from Act 5, Scene 5 of the play Macbeth. So for those of you who know the story, it's actually based on a real king of Scotland, and he had usurped the rightful king in the play by means of murder. and then he had killed several of his friends, so he became Lord of all of Scotland, which at that time was divided into different clans. And this is the end of the play. So if you know, Act 5 is the unraveling, it's the ending of the end of the play. So he's just found out that his wife has died, and then his enemies are closing in on the castle. He's preparing for the final battle. And so he's reflecting on the meaningless of life here in this little passage. 对于了解这个故事的人来说， Macbeth 是通过背叛而成为国王，因此该他的而此刻他的地位正开始动摇。他听到妻子去世的消息后，他开始思考生命毫无意义，只通向死亡。So those of us who are Buddhists, which should be probably most of the people listening today, that we understand that the qualities that Macbeth is contemplating here, or that he's cultivating, they're quite the opposite of the qualities that the Buddha advises us to cultivate. So we know about karma vipaka, so our actions and they have results. So throughout our lifespan, moment by moment, we make various kinds of decisions. And all of those decisions are going to have some kind of consequence for us. So sometimes in a simple sense, and sometimes we're unable to see the consequence until a future time when the karma finds the chance to ripen. And so not only that, the Buddha didn't merely teach us that what we do has some kind of effect. He taught us that there's a way out of this sort of cycle of suffering, the cycle of unsatisfactoriness in our lives, a way to put an end to the cycle of birth and death, and that is the Noble Eightfold Path. So later we'll talk a little bit about right effort. And so in this particular passage, we can say that Macbeth is he's actually cultivating wrong effort. He's developing the exact opposite qualities that he would want to develop, which, as I said earlier, is often a way that the Buddha will explain something. So to explain the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path, sometimes he first explains the wrongful Eightfold Path. 然而，作为佛教徒，我们认识到这并不是对情况的正确解析。在我们这个生中，我们会做出各种决定，这些决定会影响我们今生和来世的果报。此外，佛陀具有慈悲，教导我们通向苦灭的八正道，其中一个重要的道之是正精进。致力于培育善法，断除不善法。在这寄送中 ，Macbeth 实际上是在培养与佛陀建议我们培养的素质完全相反的心态。So this is a stark contrast to the words of Venerable Ratnapala, the Arahant Ratnapala, whose story is so famous and often retold. So the source of the story, the oldest source, would be from the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 82. And this is called Ratnapala Sutta. And it has two parts. The first part tells the story of Venerable Ratnapala's going forth, leaving his family out of faith. And the second part, he discusses some things about life with with the king, King Koraiva. So the king is interested to know why Venerable Ratnapala has gone forth, and he gives these four, which we call the four Dhamma summaries, and I'm going to quote in a minute just those summaries because it's quite a long sutta. We'll quote those summaries, translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi. First, we'll do the translation. 智与护国尊者阿罗汉的话形成了鲜明的对比，他的出家故事非常有名。今天我们将探讨护国经中部第82部经，在第二部分。他在这部分中交接年老的诸罗国王。国王惊讶地看到一个如此健康的年轻人，放弃吉祥权，成为一个佛教出家的比丘，便询问他为何做此决定。护国尊者以司法概要回答，法律语这他的 Dhammudesa for Dhammudesas Kataro Dhammudesa. So the summaries here in first English, then Chinese. So we'll do them one by one. So the first one, life, again, Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. In Pali, Upaniyati Loko Aduvoti. 第一个，一切时间生命皆无常，终被洪流席卷而去。So we have the first of the four Dhamma summaries. The second one, life in any world has no shelter and no protector. Katano loko anabissaroti. 第二个，一切世间无有庇护所，亦无真实救护者。And coming to the third, life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. Asako loko sabang pahaya gamaniyanti. 第三个，一切世间无有以物属己，四时被迫舍离，继续流转。And the fourth, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. Uno loco atito tanha daso ti. 一切世间无有圆满，贪得无厌，是可爱的奴隶。So, in the sutta, for those of you familiar with the sutta, the king is he's very old. As they say, the body has grown old, but the mind is not mature. So he's quite childish in his understanding, but sincere in his intention. So the king asks Venerable Ratnapala for an explanation, and Venerable Ratnapala gives some examples that are quite suited to the king's experience. So for the first summary, Venerable Ratnapala asked the king about his physical body. What was he like when he was young? And has that changed at all? And he, of course, responds that when he was a young man, he was a powerful warrior. But now he's an 80-year-old man, and he can barely even walk straight. He can't put one foot in front of the other sometimes. So Venerable Ratnapala explains this is what is meant by the world is swept away. 第二个，一切世间无有庇护所，亦无真实救护者。 Katano loko anabissaroti. 第二个，一切世间无有庇护所，亦无真实救护者。 So Venerable Ratnapala explains this is what is meant by the world is swept away. 第三个，一切世间无有庇护所，亦无真实救护者。 So 尊者向国王举几个例子以帮助其理解。关于第一个概要，他询问国王的体能。年轻时，国王当然是个强壮的战士，但到了80岁，他依旧不为难。So, regarding the second summary, the king, he proposes to Venerable Ratnapala that actually there is safety, there is a refuge for him. His kingdom is protected, his castle is protected by walls, his kingdom is protected by armies. And so he's proposing that this is a kind of refuge for him. So, but Venerable Ratnapala points out that no matter what kind of army he has, or no matter how high, how thick, whatever material he makes the walls from, whatever moats are there, whatever kind of cavalry, whatever kind of troops he has, they won't be able to fend off sickness, the pains of illness. And when these pains of illness when they come, there's no other being in the world that can suffer them on his behalf. So in this sense, there's no safe spot in the world. There's no refuge. 第二个概要，国王提到他的国王有城墙和军队保护，认为这应该算是庇护依靠。不过尊者随后指出，这些东西无法保护免有疾病之苦，也没有其他人能代替我们承受这些痛苦。So for the third summary, the third of these summaries, Venerable Ratnapala explains to the king that whatever luxuries he might enjoy in this life, whatever kind of entertainments, whatever kind of food he might have available to him, whatever kind of treasures, all of these he'll have to leave when he passes away. And other people will actually enjoy them rather than him. So in this sense, he has nothing of his own. 第三个概要，不过尊者让国王承认，无论在今生享受多么奢侈的娱乐，最终都必须在生命结束时将其抛下。So the fourth summary is rather disturbing because Venerable Ratnapala asks the king, who's already old, he can't even walk straight, but he asks the king, what would you do if there was a kingdom on your borderland, on the frontier, and you heard about this kingdom, that it was defenseless, that you could easily conquer it, or what would you do? And he said, well, of course, I would order the armies to march. We would conquer it right away. So it's just, there's no end to it. He doesn't think, oh, I already have enough. I've been fighting for 80 years and my life is near its end, or something like that. He just thinks, well, our country is more powerful. We will conquer. We will take over. So then I ask you to consider for yourselves, has the world changed so much? Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. Consider for yourselves what would happen if there were a king and there were a country next door he heard was undefended, that he would easily be able to conquer, and nobody else would step in to defend that country. Would he invade or not? So you can consider. 第四个概要格外令人不寒而栗。国王承认，如果边境有一个无人防守的国家，他会毫无犹豫地入侵。这一回答清楚地展示了人类无止境的欲望，即使年事已高，他仍渴望得到更多。 试想，如果今天有国王，在这种情况下会怎么做？我不要求回答，你可以静静的深思。So powerful, powerful these four summaries are. They only explain why Venerable Ratapala has gone forth. They don't really give a solution. So we have to look further. If we want to overcome the situation, the world is a slave to craving, nothing will endure, the world is swept away, all of these things, then we have to look to some other kind of practice, some kind of practice. So the simple answer would practice, of course, we have to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. So in particular, of course, that's quite general. If we want to practice the Eightfold Noble Path, we have to undergo quite a few steps. First, we have to know what that is, and then we have to undertake various different trainings. So one particular practice that is helpful to overcome some of these difficulties is death contemplation, or Marana-nusati. So there are various ways given in the Visuddhimagga how to practice Marana-nusati, and later we'll talk about some of the preliminary methods. Some of them can be, it's quite a long passage in the Visuddhimagga, but there's a very simple passage in the Dhammapada commentary, the Dhammapada story 174. And so we'll look at that practice in a moment.这四个概要解释了护国尊者出家的原因，但尚未说明如何克服这种处境。当然，简单的答案是修习八正道，但有另一种特别的方法可以帮助我们，那就是思随念。精进导论提供了多种技巧，但法住经第174记的注释中提到了一种简单的方法。So the instructions that I'm going to read, the translation is from Burlingame and Anandajoti Bhante. It was originally done by the scholar Burlingame 120 years ago, and Bhante Anandajoti recently revised the translation. And these instructions were embedded in a story. So you're all familiar probably with the story, but just for now, we're going to focus on the instructions. My life is not certain. My death is certain. Inevitable is my death. My life will end in death. Life is completely unsure. Death is sure. 所以这些解释是在一个故事中。我的生命是不确定的，而我的死亡是确定的。死亡是必然的。我的生命将以死亡告终。生命完全不确定，但死亡是确定的。So in the same story, the Buddha he explains the results of practicing this method. 在同一个故事中，佛陀提到修习此法的结果是，那些修习四随念的人，在最后一刻到来时不会有恐惧，而是像一个坚定镇定的人，看到远处的一条蛇，用棍子将蛇挑起并抛弃。 They that have practiced meditation on death will have no fear when their last hour comes, but will be like a steadfast man who, seeing a snake even afar off, takes it up with his stick and tosses it away. So to practice, so this is one simple method of reflecting in this way. In the story, the young woman practices this way and she's able to attain stream entry by doing so. To practice Marananusati in the way described in Paok Sayadaw's meditation system, one focuses on one's own dead body, an image of one's own dead body. And usually this is taught to meditators who've already attained quite strong degree of concentration. But the Visuddhimagga gives a number of relatively easier techniques, some introductory techniques that can be used for a contemplation of death. So we'll look at a couple of these alternative techniques now. So one of the techniques is to focus on past generations. So we can focus on, for example, the life of Venerable Ratnapala. So the way he is actually portrayed in the sutta, in the Ratnapala Sutta, is as a young man, a handsome man from a good family, very wealthy family. He's given up tremendous inheritance. Against his parents' wishes, he's gone forth. And the king sees him and is stunned that such a person would go forth. Now, when we think about Bhante Ratnapala, Venerable Ratnapala, that's what we imagine. But the reality is that he passed away more than 2,000 years ago. So he attained arahantship. He was the foremost of the Buddha's disciples, of those who went forth in faith. And he had all of these qualities, but they're all gone now. And so no matter what kind of attainment we achieve, then this will also have to pass away. Similarly, King Koraivya, he has practiced as a soldier, as a king, as a conqueror. And he's portrayed as somebody who could conquer a neighboring country with just simple command. But of course, he also has passed away more than 2,000 years ago. And who knows where he's been reborn? We don't know what kind of state he'd be born into. 在排奥禅修体系中，修习这种思维念观想是以自己死去的身体影像为所缘。这通常是交给已经培养出禅定的禅修者。因此，我们今天就不详述所有的细节。然而，倾听导论也提供了许多其他的初学者可用入门方法，其中一种涉及反思过去的时代。在这种情况下，我们可以反思护国尊者阿罗汉。经中描绘他是一个出身高贵的年轻人，他放弃了一切，并争得了最高的国位。不论他有多大的成就，如今他不再是英俊的年轻僧人，他早已入灭2000多年了。同理，诸罗婆王是一个能够征服邻国的强大君主，但他也早已死亡。又有谁知道，他转生何处？So of course, the time and manner of our death is uncertain, which is another reflection given in the Visuddhimagga. So just to share a story from our monastery in Sri Lanka, there was a young monk not yet 30 years old, and he was traveling from one part of the monastery to another, took a shortcut across sort of the edge of the monastery, and he accidentally sprung a trap that had been laid there for a wild boar. Now, of course, these kinds of traps are not allowed in the monastery, so it was quite illegal for the hunter to have placed it there, but nevertheless he had. And so this monk has triggered the trap, and sometime later he died from the wound. Was found dead not that long afterwards. And so just a few weeks before this event, I'd been discussing with that monk about his plans for Vasa. He had been thinking about visiting Thailand to meditate for a few months, but none of that was able to happen. So who knows who's able to predict these kinds of things? We don't know how we might die or when we might die. 我们死亡的时间和方式同样是不确定的。几年前，为我熟识的僧人，在寺院外围散步时，不小心触发了一个不野猪的陷阱而致命。就在他去世的前几周，我还与他讨论过他的援助计划，没有人能预料这种事情。So when we're practicing our contemplations of death, these kinds of contemplations, it's extremely important to maintain a balanced state of mind. So some people have problems when they practice contemplation of death. The Visuddhimagga even mentions some of them. For example, if they contemplate the death of a loved one, they might become upset, or they might become afraid for them. Or someone might, it's also possible that when somebody is practicing this meditation, they might start to become depressed. They might start to feel that life has no meaning, it all ends in death. Or they might start to be afraid for their own safety. Various kind of obstacles can come up. So we saw, for example, this sort of mindset from the play Macbeth, and the character falls into such wrong ways of thinking. He falls into those wrong ways of thinking because he doesn't know about a proper way of practice. He doesn't know about the Buddhist teachings. He's a completely unscrupulous man, somebody who's done many bad things in his life. But well-intentioned meditators can also fall into these kinds of difficulties. So if these kinds of situation starts to arise, then you should know that it's not the right time to be practicing Marananusati. It's better to choose a different meditation object. For example, contemplating the virtues of the Buddha, Buddhanusati. It's often quite an uplifting topic for many people. Another one is sometimes if you're really upset, it's not the correct time to meditate at all. Maybe it's better to focus on practicing dana or chanting, or focus on some other part of your Dhamma practice until the mind becomes more balanced. 在进行知识随念时，保持平衡的心是信念至关重要。我们已探讨一位不择手段的算位置，尽管是虚构的，是如何以错见看待生死，但品德高尚之人也可能因生活的种种境遇而同样陷入这种绝望的视角。若对死亡的生死引发对至亲安危的恐惧，对自己处境的焦虑的单焦虑，或是陷入无望之感， 那么这可能不是你目前适合的观修对象，也许这个时候应该休息佛随念，纪念佛陀的功德，会更合适，或者也可专注于培养布施心。So in this kind of situation, sort of thinking about this kind of situation, it's a good time to review the four kinds of right effort. So we'll quote from the Samyutta Nikaya, Ajahn Sujato's translation of 44.8 to 44.8. What is right effort? It's when a mendicant generates enthusiasm, tries, makes an effort, exerts the mind, and strives so that bad, unskillful qualities don't arise. They generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that bad, unskillful qualities that have arisen are given up. They generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that skillful qualities that have not arisen do arise. They generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that skillful qualities that have arisen remain, are not lost, but increase, mature, and are fulfilled by development. This is called right effort. 回顾四种正精进永远不会有坏处。我正引用相应部44.8爱真苏扎特第一。正精进是什么？是比丘升起意愿，勤勉努力，专注其心，精进力行，令未生恶不善法不生，令已生恶不善法断除，令未生的善法升起，令已生的善法稳固，不枉失，增长，圆满，究竟开发，这就成为正精进。So, of course, this is a critical part of the path, these four kinds of right effort. I think we will conclude this section with a quote from Venerable Nigroda from the Theragatha. So it's from Theragatha. It's in the ones in Sutta number 21, translation Ajahn Sujato. So I'll quote the Pali, then the English, then the Chinese. Naham bayasa bayami sata no amatasa kovido yatta bayang navatittati tena magena vajanti bhikkhavoti. I'm not afraid of fear, for our teacher is expert in the deathless. Mendicants advance by the path where no fear remains. 我无畏于恐惧，吾师乃精通不所道之智者。比丘所行之正道，恐惧如此永绝迹。So I think we'll open for questions now. Is there anything anyone would like to clarify?
Thank you, Bante, for your teaching today. May we open the floor for today's questions? You can send your questions to Zoom Q&A or chat now. The organizer will respond to all questions within the available time, and any unanswered question will be answered in the coming teaching.
So if there's no question for this teaching, we probably would do the sharing the merits.
I think I see one question coming. I'm not sure
okay.
it's a question, but it's in Chinese.
Yeah. It's a question, yes.
Okay.
Okay, let me read it. 请问如何在葬礼中保持正念，却又不会让人觉得很冷漠呢？萨度，萨度，萨度。
Maybe you can put an English translation up beside it, Janice?
You want me to type it?
I think better to...
I think it's...
because not everybody's going to understand, and I don't want to misunderstand by mistake.
Mm-hmm. And then how to translate 冷漠 cold-minded?
I think it... Okay, yeah.
Is it close enough?
Okay, I think... so regarding funerals, we have to look at the situation and see what our relationship is to the person who's deceased. So, 所以在葬礼中，我们看我们目前的情况，比如说去世的人可能是我们亲戚，可能是朋友，所以有各种各样的情况。So we have these different kinds of situations, and we have to behave in different ways. 所以我们的适合的行为看像这样的情况。And sometimes we're very upset, but we have to be friendly to others. 有时候我们觉得我们很绝望，但是我们需要跟其他人讲话，打交道，像这样的打交道，像这样的有可能很难做。So sometimes we have to shake hands with people, and we have to act in a friendly way, even though we're upset inside. And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes we don't know the person who's passed away very well. 有时候我们不熟识过去的人，所以是完全不一样。So in that situation, and maybe we don't feel very upset, but we have to show sympathy for others. 所以那时候我们需要，其实因为我们不大认识去世的人，所以没有什么就是心里没有不动摇，但是我们需要表达我们对其他人的支持，像这样 we have to give them our support. So maybe the questioner is asking what to do if they're very upset, how to control those feelings. 所以可能问题是怎么 控制我们的感情。So in this case, it's helpful to focus on something physical. For example, we can focus on the body. 如果我们not sure how do we say what if you feel very upset? How do you say upset, Janet? What if you feel upset? Janice?
伤心、不高兴、悲哀。
不高兴，伤心。如果你觉得很伤心，需要控制你的感情，你可以用比较简单的所缘，像身体，你可以专注你的身体，或者可以回佛陀的功德，比较简单的禅法比较适合这样的情况。So we can choose quite a simple meditation object if we're just trying to control our emotions, like Buddha Nusati or focusing on the body. Now, this question, because it's a difficult situation, so you have to use your own wisdom to find a solution. 像这样的情况就是很难过，可能需要用自己的智慧来解决。
呀，尊者就是告诉我们这是蛮难处理的事情，所以大家要用智慧来处理。尊者也提供我们就说可以用的方法，像佛水念或者是观身。
I think maybe one other thing is it depends a bit on culture. The way that Westerners are expected to act at a funeral. If you live in USA, maybe people expect you to be very upset. But if you're in Sri Lankan culture, then especially the men, they're not supposed to show their emotion. So there could be also some cultural differences. 可能有一些文化的差异，所以呢，看你住在哪里啊。
Yeah, thank you, Bante.
Doesn't look like there is more questions. So may Bante lead us to in making aspiration and sharing merit, please.
Idam me punyam
Idam me punyam
asavakaya
asawakaya
vaham hotu.
vaham hotu.
Idam me punyam
Idam me punyam
nibbanasa
nibbanasa
pachayo hotu.
pachayo hotu.
Sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you especially to the ones who, to Sister Janice, Brother Jesse, who helped prepare this Chinese translation, because it's a bit beyond me to prepare all of these things.